So I'm here with n0thing at IEM Dallas 2024. So of course I wanted to ask you, our readers, our viewers, they all know you as this former pro player. What are you doing now?
Yeah, so I am streaming, doing a little bit of consulting work. I have a couple clients that are kind of endemic to esports and one that's not, that I will exchange time for helping them sort out maybe sponsorships, streamers to work with, things like that. And now I also have two children. So I've kind of created a flow for my work the last couple years where I am able to limit my time when needed to help out around the house and stuff, and trying to still pave times for stuff like this, being able to come to IEMs and hang out events.
So you do some consulting. What unique experiences do you offer to the businesses that hire you?
Yeah, so basically, it normally starts with getting an understanding of their goals and kind of their budget size and things like that. And it's like a traditional marketing agency would take a lot of focus on just analytics. And what I do is I try to get those reports from people and say, hey, if you want to work with these people, this is the numbers, but they can get that from other people. So a lot of times I'll just kind of cater things, especially around CS or Valve community or communities that I know a little better. And I will help kind of decide and give maybe, hey, this would feel more genuine to this community, or kind of be there as an advisor to the marketing campaign and help them frame the kind of the feel, the wording, sometimes literally helping them like script out some like commercial stuff, just because, you know, you're talking to certain fans and I'm like, okay, that's going to be really snarky or maybe too technical. You'd either have to meme that or realize you're going to get made fun of for this because it's kind of cheesy and this is the angle, and then introductions, kind of connecting them to the right group of people, kind of help them fast track some of, if they want to work with IEM and different people and the connections I have.
So it's kind of like you're selling your authenticities because you know everything about the scene and such like that.
Exactly, and sometimes I upsell actually being an ambassador for the company myself, kind of like with All Star GG, they're the clipping service and things like that. So, and then sometimes I'm just behind the scenes.
And so, as you were a pro player for a long time, was this sort of pivot to business something you were expecting to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I was kind of interested in business when I started school for a couple years, and I dropped out for gaming, obviously, in Counter-Strike. I still loved Counter-Strike, and actually, as Valve opens up the circuit in 2025, I'm kind of starting to prod and kind of just daydream a little bit and plan a little bit, like what would some other ways I could be involved in the scene in a larger way. I've pondered starting an org for years, but it's just like, it's something you could almost like cringe at this point because of the amount of people who've tried that and maybe who have the wrong approach, or just take the the investment bubble that we kind of went through in esports 5-6 years ago. But all things like that like still excite me, and so I've always kind of been thinking in that level. I wish I would have done even more projects back when I was competing, because that's when things are easier to connect with the community and things of that nature.
And speaking about getting into or being CS after a pro player, after you sort of semi-retired, you were a commentator, an analyst for a few years. Is that something you'd like to get back into?
Yeah, potentially. I honestly probably would be continuously doing it at least quarterly until now if it wasn't for COVID. I think what happened with COVID is that actually encouraged me to shift how my business worked a little, and then I was happy that I had opportunity outside of being just an analyst and stuff, but I really loved it. IEM Chicago, New York, so I was going to those for a couple years in a row, and on the analyst desk, Face-Its, in London, and yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy watching matches and talking about them.
So potentially, as the Counter-Strike ecosystem opens up coming to 2025, we could see more of n0thing in Counter-Strike broadcasts?
Totally, and I wouldn't be, and a big part of this is also my kids. I have a 3-year-old and a 9-month-old, so as they get a little bit older, it'll be easier for mom to be, for me to have the kids left with her, because she's already doing, all the childcare essentially when actually, she would be like, don't say essentially. Give me credit where it's due. She's working overtime. And so that's something that's like my number one priority with family, so to make sure that is set before I commit. But I would love to keep the answer short, 2025 and on, I would love to get more active in the events again.
And since COVID and potentially even a little before that, but pretty much since 2019, 2020, pretty much all of Counter-Strike has been focused in Europe. Obviously, that's a difficulty for you. But can you speak as to like the, the difficulties that that's caused for North American Counter-Strike?
Well, I think there's a couple like underlying things regardless of where CS is being played. Like the fact that I feel like I've observed like who's our real leaders in North America. Like I actually think Stanislaw was one of their better IGLs, but he hasn't been, like what is it on Complexity? Who's it's JT? His IGL, yeah, his IGL. Like we have a couple. Let's put it this way: like Elige, NAF, Twist. Like we needed those cores probably to stay together better, and then of course Valorant and our tier 2 infrastructure. Like it's the elephant in the room, right? So that affected the practice a little bit, and then going to Europe is kind of an issue, but historically that is our NA's formula for winning: is play against the Europeans in practice and for a long time. So I don't necessarily think that should be an excuse. I just think like what real NA teams with our strongest players have been even playing since the Liquid run in 2019, we actually haven't really had like Complexity is our strongest core, and they could get beat by M80 on any given day. But M80, you could argue, shouldn't have the same ceiling as Complexity, but maybe their floor is closer than Complexity will. Anyway, so it's I think we're just kind of a mess top down.
That's definitely true.
And now we're a bit of underdogs, and
Even at our home event.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, at least we get to root for Stewie.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to watch. Yeah.
Yeah. And you said how important it was, like the winning formula for North America was always to practice against EU competition. IEM Dallas and events like that in North America, which are pretty much only this and the RMR. Well, sorry, there's no European teams that, so it's just IEM Dallas, at least for this year. That is when a bunch of top-tier European teams come to North America. How important are events like that for North America's ecosystem?
Oh, massive. I mean, I think as you see, the turnout here is great, and I think, bringing more events back like ESL One New York or IEM Chicago or whatever we're going to call them, I think it's great, and I think there's an audience for it still, and I think there's a lot of people from the older generation of Counter-Strike fans to newer that are coming in that love it, and I hope with the open circuit in the years to come that we continue to embrace, like DreamHack and how they've funneled and had their open qualifiers in the past. Like, I hope the open qualifier thing keeps growing and we keep getting more events in North America, and that's the way we continue to see new talent come up.
Right, and when 2025 does open, we do get that that open circuit. We're going to have at least announced now, 4 main tournament organizers. Back when you retired, no offense, a while ago, you said a part of the reason was because of so many tournaments happening so often, and the schedule was tough to navigate. You couldn't find time at home. Do you think that's potentially an issue coming into next year?
Oh yeah, I mean it's always an issue. I think what is going to take a little time to navigate and the dust will have to settle is like right now teams have these different agreements with ESL or whoever, and what apparently those agreements either can't exist or have to exist in a much lighter capacity. People are going to have to solve like what is their formula or how do they go about deciding how their schedule should look. The obvious answer is like what's the biggest, most prestigious events, what is going to give the most exposure to our sponsors. So I think the problem could get worse right away if the barrier to entry is gone for these events. The benefit is that if more are coming in, that means more competition for said events, and it rises the tides again and makes the events conditions just continue to rise and puts more value on who could run the best event. So that's the benefit. I think the downside is obvious, what you're saying, oversaturation, but I think like ESL and these groups, like they're going to continue to monopolize, not just out of like a malicious business strategy, just because they legitimately run the best events and have had so much experience doing so. So I think some of it will sort itself out, and then some of it we'll see maybe in groups trying to do new events and new things, and we'll just see how well they run the events, and maybe another a players association needs another spark again to reapproach that and say, okay, like how do we represent tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 schedules to integrate and actually sit down, because we can sit here and talk about it, I can give my opinions, but you definitely need you need a good roundtable discussion to sort this kind of thing out.
Yeah, and potentially part of the reason that ESL and Blast became so big is because these partner, they were able to lock organizations into these partnership agreements.
Yep.
With this open system, orgs are going to choose to participate in events based on what's best for the team, right? So like the travel accommodations, the prize pool, things like that.
Yeah. Correct, and also just like I said, you can't overlook the production and the actual event itself. Sponsors want to say, is this something fans are having fun at? What obviously they're going to look at viewership numbers and things of that nature. So ESL is in a good position. Luckily, Blast, because these people are putting on good shows. So what's exciting is if, like MLG, like they actually had a pretty solid production value for the size of tournaments they were putting on, and they always ran pretty smooth. So someone comes back in the fray like that, it could be fun. But like you said, we always have to consider what's the best for the narratives year round. We've been trying to sort that out for years. We have some years are better than others in CS where you really say, okay, I'm so excited for this. Back in my day, like Cloud9 versus Virtus Pro, like we haven't played each other for a couple months. They knocked us out of the last tournament. This one map means a ton. You lose that when you oversaturate, so that's not news to anyone. So, keeping all the regions strong enough with their own tournaments so that they have good practice while limiting international exposure to more meaningful instances definitely helps, I think, narratives and strengthen kind of, if you're watching the Stanley Cup like 8 times a year, it doesn't have the same weight. So that's always something we need to make sure we're balancing. Even if the tournaments are all awesome and there's a lot of prize money to go around, we can't just say, hey, we need $10 million tournaments every week. Anyways, I digress.
All right, well, thank you, n0thing, for your time, and hope you have a wonderful time at DreamHack Dallas this weekend.
Thank you.